I'm Isabella, and it took me nearly 3 years to save up every spare penny for this dream trip. An 8-day tour through Europe, something I planned as a gift for my parents. Not a cheap cookie-cutter tour, but a first-class experience. A four-star hotel in Rome, dinner on a river cruise along the Seine in Paris, VIP tickets to the opera in Vienna. I picked up weekend shifts, gave up vacation time, even turned down dates. Every single dollar I saved was meant for this moment, to let my parents experience a world they'd only ever seen on a screen. That morning, I arrived exactly on time. 6 a.m., bitterly cold. My car was parked by the curb, headlights still glowing. I looked up at the porch and saw my mom. "Hata, Carol," dragging her suitcase to the door. I got out of the car, waved and smiled. And then, I saw my sister Brittany rolling out a large, hot pink suitcase. I froze. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice strained. "Where's Brittany going?" Mom turned to me, her face beaming like she'd just won the lottery. "Oh, Isabella, your dad and I decided Brittany should go instead of you. She's been under so much stress lately. She needs this vacation to clear her mind." I thought I misheard. "You mean I'm not going?" I looked at Brittany. My 26-year-old sister who had quit her job 3 months ago and hadn't done anything since. She shrugged and gave me a smirk that was half smug, half mocking. "Thanks, sis," Brittany said sweetly, but her voice was hollow. "You're seriously the nicest person ever." My hands clenched so tightly my nails dug into my skin. I'd been planning this trip for 3 years, flights, hotels, tours. I'd booked everything, every single detail. Mom waved her hand like I'd just reminded her of something insignificant. "We know, sweetheart, but you're always working, aren't you? You can take another trip later. Brittany really needs this more than you." I was speechless. My heart pounded, not from emotion, but from the choking weight of betrayal. I turned to my dad, Robert, standing just behind the door. He avoided my gaze, fumbling awkwardly with his leather bag. He didn't say a word, just quietly handed it to me, like everything was totally fine. I took a step back, my chest rising and falling. So this was the plan? Cut me out of the trip I'd paid for and replace me with Brittany? You all think that's reasonable? Mom smiled calmly. "Don't make this a big deal, Isabella. This is about family. Brittany just needs a break." Brittany giggled and rolled her suitcase toward my car. "Don't worry, sis. I'll send you photos every day." And in that moment, I finally admitted something I'd been denying for years. No matter how hard I tried, in their eyes, Brittany would always come first. I was just the shadow in the background. I swallowed the lump in my throat and walked to the trunk. "Get in," I said, my voice as cold as steel. "It's the trip you wanted. Go enjoy it." And I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them enjoy it easily. I sat behind the wheel, eyes locked on the long stretch of road leading to Charlotte Douglas International Airport. The car was painfully silent, except for Brittany's excited chatter from the back seat. "Oh my gosh, Mom, did you see this TikTok of that couple vlogging in Venice? Every shot looks like a movie. I hope our hotel overlooks the canal like theirs." I didn't respond. My jaw was clenched, hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because if I opened my mouth, I might scream. Mom sat beside me, eyes glued to her phone. She didn't even glance my way, as if I were nothing more than a hired Uber driver for their luxury getaway. "Make sure you drop us at Terminal D, Isabella," she said casually. "We're flying with Lufthansa." "We," I almost laughed. That "we" had long stopped including me. It took 22 minutes to get to the airport. I counted every one of them like each was a knife twisting in my chest. When we reached the drop-off area, I pulled over and got out to help with the luggage. "Thanks, Isabella," Mom said, giving me a quick, half-hearted hug. "Next time, we'll go together. Don't be too upset, okay?" I stood there, frozen. Brittany pulled her suitcase behind her, looked at me, and grinned. Don't forget to send me the name of that bag store in Italy you mentioned. I might buy one for you. If I have any money left. She winked. I didn't say a word, just nodded. Inside, I was boiling. But I pressed my lips together and waved goodbye as they disappeared into the crowd of travelers, heading off to enjoy a vacation that was supposed to be mine. 10 minutes later, I was still in the parking lot, both hands clenched around the wheel. A cold wind slipped through the slightly cracked window. I exhaled, long and heavy. Then, tears came, but not for long. I wiped my face, started the engine, pulled out, and as I drove away from the terminal, a thought struck me. Not loud, not dramatic, just a simple, brutal decision. I got home just before 8 a.m. My small, tidy apartment, bought with my own engineering salary, sat quietly in a peaceful neighborhood on the outskirts of Charlotte. Without saying a word, I walked in, opened my laptop, and logged into every account I'd used to plan the trip. Delta Airlines, Boutique Montmartre Hotel, Paris, Florence Food Tour, private car service in Vienna, concert tickets in Prague. Each booking, each itinerary I had meticulously crafted over the past 3 years, I had started canceling them, one by one. Hotel? Cancelled. Private tour? Cancelled. Upgraded seats? Gone. VIP travel package? I clicked cancel and refund without blinking. Confirmation emails poured into my inbox like a cascade of confetti, only cold and lifeless, signaling the end of a dream. But unlike what I expected, I didn't feel guilt. I felt relieved. No warning texts, no phone calls, no explanations. If they decided they didn't need me on the trip, then they could forget about enjoying it on my dime. That afternoon, I poured myself a cup of mint tea, sat on the couch, opened Netflix, and tried to do something normal. But my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 11 missed calls from Mom. 5 texts from Brittany. Some in full caps. Isabella, why is the hotel saying we're not in the system? What did you do? Call me now. Brittany is freaking out. I turned off my phone. That night, I laid in bed, unable to sleep. Not from worry, but from a feeling I hadn't had in years. I had just taken back a part of myself I thought I'd lost. And this was only the beginning. I turned my phone off at midnight, and by the next morning, when I powered it back on, the screen lit up instantly. Over 30 messages, 12 missed calls, and 3 voicemails, all from the same 3 names: Mom, Dad, and Brittany. The first message was from my mother, sent at 2:17 a.m. Paris time. Isabella, you need to call me right now. The hotel refused to check us in. They said the reservation was canceled. What did you do? Then one from Brittany. What is wrong with you? Are you seriously messing with your own family? You want us to sleep on the street or something? I scrolled through the messages, each one laced with panic, anger, and blame. As if I had betrayed them, as if I were selfish, rather than the person who spent 3 years planning this for them. I leaned back into the couch, phone face down on the table. I had expected them to react, but I hadn't expected the storm to come so quickly, or so furiously. The first voicemail was from Dad. His voice was low and tired. Isabella, I don't understand what's happening. We're standing here in Paris with no hotel. Your mom is furious. Brittany's flipping out. This is too much. Please, call us back. I sighed. Just once. Just once, I wanted them to put me first. Once. But that had never happened. An hour later, as I was folding laundry, my phone rang again. FaceTime. Caller ID. Mom. I hesitated, then picked up. Her face appeared instantly, red with fury. Behind her stood Brittany, glaring daggers, surrounded by luggage strewn across the hotel lobby floor. Do you even know what you've done? Mom barked the second my face appeared. We were turned away from both hotels. No airport pickup. The tour guide can't be reached. You erased everything. I kept my voice calm, though my throat felt dry. I didn't erase anything, I just canceled all the bookings because I wasn't part of the trip that I planned and paid for. This is childish, Brittany shouted from behind, jumping into the frame. You're just jealous, so you ruined everything? Grow up. I gave a dry laugh. Jealous? Of what? The fact that you get favored without having to lift a finger? Mom cut in, voice sharp. Isabella, this isn't how family behaves. You're embarrassing all of us abroad. I stared straight into the camera, eyes steady. No, Mom. I just stopped being the one who cleans up after everyone else. For years, I've been the patch holding everything together. This time, I'm letting you figure it out yourselves. So you're punishing the family? My mom snapped, her voice almost breaking, over one small decision? I could feel the anger in every word. But I didn't flinch. Full small decision? You're calling cutting me out of the trip I spent 3 years planning small? Brittany crossed her arms. You're so petty, Isabella. If it were me, I would never do something like this to the family. I clenched my fists. You've never had to do anything for the family, Brittany. Because I've always done it for you. A brief silence fell over the call. Finally, my mom softened her tone, trying to sound calm. So, what do you want now? We can't stand here forever. I looked at her for a long moment. I want you to understand that this time, I'm not the one fixing everything. I'm not the cushion for your bad decisions. You wanted to take the trip without me? Fine, but then take it on your own dime. And I hung up. I set my phone down, my heart still pounding. The anger was still there, but so was something else. Relief. For years, I had lived in Brittany's shadow, and my parents had acted like my contributions were simply expected. They got used to me enduring, giving in, losing out, until I was no longer there to do it. And now, they didn't know how to function. That evening, I unplugged my phone, turned off all notifications, made myself a cup of tea, stepped out onto the balcony, and for the first time in years, I exhaled, like I'd finally pulled a thorn from my chest. They could call me whatever they wanted, immature, petty, selfish. But this time, at least, I chose me. 3 days later, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't Mom. It wasn't Brittany either. It was Dad. Robert. A quiet man who usually followed my mom's lead and rarely spoke up. I hesitated, but then I answered. Isabella. His voice came through, deeper than I remembered. I'm calling because your mom, she doesn't know what to say anymore. This whole thing has gone too far. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the fogged window. I'm listening. Go ahead. Brittany's still furious. Your mom's exhausted. The trip turned into a disaster. But what hurts the most is that you're acting like a stranger. I closed my eyes. A dull ache pushed up in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. Do you think that's what I wanted? He paused, then sighed. I just think maybe you could have told us first, instead of canceling everything. It really hurt the family. I let out a short laugh, but not because it was funny. Hurt? Have you ever thought about how I've felt all these years? Every holiday, every plan, it all revolves around Brittany. Every time she messes up, who steps in? And me? I've never once been the one you chose. His voice dropped. You're being overly sensitive. Brittany's younger, less stable, she needs. I cut him off, my voice suddenly sharp and clear. No, don't say Brittany needs again. I have needs too. But not once did you or Mom ask what I needed, because you assumed I'd just suck it up. Silence. I thought he might hang up. But then, he asked quietly, So, what do you want now? I gripped the armrest, each word coming from the deepest part of me. I want to stop being a shadow in my own family. I want to stop being your backup plan, and I want you all to understand that I'm done being the fixer. If someone creates a mess, they clean it up themselves. He didn't respond for a while. Then he exhaled, a tired, almost defeated sound. I understand. Maybe we didn't really see it before, but please, Isabella, don't let this tear the family apart. I looked up at the ceiling, tears welling. Not from pain this time, but from finally saying what I had always buried inside. I never wanted to tear the family apart, but if keeping it together means sacrificing myself every day, then I don't want it like that anymore. You're still our daughter. And I always will be, I said. But I'm not the girl who says yes to everything anymore. If you want me in your life, you need to learn how to respect me. I finished speaking. No words of blame came from the other end, just the soft sound of wind rustling through the phone. And finally, my dad responded, "I'll talk to your mom. I hope one day you'll forgive us." I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. I'm not angry. I'm just learning how to choose myself. I ended the call with a gentle goodbye. When the screen went dark, I didn't feel regret. I didn't feel fear. I just felt relieved. That afternoon, I drove out to the lakeside park, carrying my old journal and the black ink pen I always kept. I sat on the wooden bench near the edge of the water where golden leaves drifted down gently, and began to write. Today, I officially stepped out of the role called the good daughter. I'm not the one who holds this family together at the cost of myself, and I don't have to prove anything to anyone anymore. I wrote until the sun dipped behind the trees, its fading light gently closing a chapter. That night, for the first time in years, I turned off every light in the house, lit a scented candle, and played the soft jazz I loved. No deadlines, no voices calling for help, just me, the space, and a kind of peace I thought I'd never feel. I knew the journey ahead would still be long, but at least I had stepped out of the invisible cage I once called duty. And once again, I reminded myself, I deserve to be chosen. 2 days later, while I was reorganizing the bookshelf in my living room, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and wasn't surprised to see Grace, my best friend since college, holding 2 cups of hot coffee and wearing a look of concern mixed with curiosity. "Have you made the local paper yet?" she teased as she walked in. "The rebel sister finally makes her debut." I laughed, taking the latte from her hand. "Just waiting on CNN now." Grace set down her bag and dropped onto the couch. "Your mom called me this morning. Very polite, very wounded mother. He wants me to call her back?" Grace nodded. "But I told her you were busy. Finding yourself?" I paused, then burst out laughing. It sounded like one of those cheesy social media quotes, but in my heart, it felt exactly right. "Grace," I said after a moment, "I'm tired. I've spent my whole life trying to please other people. This is the first time I've done something just for me, and I don't want to go back." Grace looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "I'm proud of you." That afternoon, I started to reorganize not just my apartment, but my life. First, I took down the heavy brown curtains my mom gave me when I first moved in. I replaced them with sheer white ones that let the sunlight flood in every morning. I bought a few small plants, succulents, pothos, a peace lily. Every corner of the home began to shift. Brighter, more alive, more me. I donated the old furniture Brittany once called tacky, and picked out a few new pieces from a local antique market. Nothing fancy, but each one had soul, and for the first time, this place truly felt like mine. That weekend, Grace dragged me to a pottery workshop. I planned to just watch, but somehow I found my hand sinking into a lump of wet clay. A wobbly mug took shape under my awkward fingers, but I loved it like it was a symbol of myself. Flawed, but real. I started spending my evenings walking around my neighborhood. I stopped at the little cafes I used to rush past. I reread old books and rewrote dreams I'd once forgotten in the name of being a good daughter. Then one night, while journaling, I remembered the refund money from the canceled trip. More than $9,000, still sitting in my savings account. I opened my laptop and typed, "Solo trip for women in their 30s. A list of results popped up. I clicked on one for a 10-day tour through Portugal and Spain, made for independent women travelers. Small group, female guide, no rigid schedule. I scrolled through the images. The sun-drenched streets of Lisbon, the beaches of Costa del Sol, candlelit dinners under the stars. And I felt it, clear and strong. I wanted to be in those pictures. Not the one behind the camera, but the one living the moment. I signed up, and when I hit confirm booking, I didn't hesitate. I just felt free. The next morning, I texted Grace. "Next month, I'm going to Europe. Alone." She replied instantly. Yes. That's the new Isabella, and I love her. For the whole following week, I packed my bags. Not a suitcase for someone else, a suitcase for me. As I bought a new journal to record the journey, a few simple dresses that made me feel confident. I chose each item not to impress anyone, but to feel comfortable in my own skin. The night before my flight, I sat alone in my living room, taking one last look at the apartment, now truly a home. I put on soft music, poured myself a glass of white wine, and wrote the first line in the journal. And tomorrow, I'm no longer the one left behind. Tomorrow, I'm the one walking ahead. The flight from New York to Lisbon was nearly 8 hours, but I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, eyes fixed on the tiny lights below disappearing into the darkness. My heart was a mix of nervous and strangely peaceful, something I had never felt before. No one came with me. No one texted, "Don't forget to send photos." No one asked if I'd checked in. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone. When the plane landed at Humberto Delgado Airport, Lisbon welcomed me with bright golden sunshine and a sea-scented breeze. I rolled my suitcase through customs, heart fluttering like a child leaving her small hometown for the first glimpse of the world. On the first day, I wandered around Baixa, the old town filled with winding cobblestone alleys like a maze. I had no tight schedule, just followed my instincts. Every cafe I stopped at, every shop I stepped into was a charming surprise. I ate warm, crispy pastel de nata at a street corner bakery and drank strong, unsweetened black coffee, just like myself in that moment. Bold, real, and unapologetically unfiltered. That evening, I sat on my hotel balcony, overlooking the Tagus River. I held my journal and scribbled a short line. Freedom isn't loud, it's quiet but profound, and it doesn't ask for permission. On the third day, I joined a group tour to Sintra, a town straight out of a fairy tale. While others posed for photos as the guide directed, I quietly slipped away onto a side trail leading up a hill. From the top, I saw the colorful Peña Palace rising from the green forest under skies bluer than anything on the internet. I reached for my phone to snap a photo, but paused. I wanted to remember the moment through the feeling in my heart, not through a lens meant for others to like. A week later, I arrived in Seville, Spain. The city pulsed with the intensity of flamenco, bold, free, unapologetically alive. I spent one evening watching a traditional flamenco performance in a warm, intimate room where every clap, every stomp from the dancer echoed like a declaration. I exist. I am enough. And I realized that's how I wanted to live too. On the final morning before leaving Europe, I sat at a small sidewalk cafe in Barcelona. The early sun filtered through the trees, casting golden light on the weathered wooden table. I ordered my usual, an espresso and toast with olive oil. A message came through from my mom. The first after several days of silence. "Hope you're having a meaningful trip. When you're back, if you're willing, I'd love to see you and hear about it." I looked at the screen. No smile, no frown. I simply felt no rush. For the first time, I wasn't bound by anyone's expectations. I didn't reply. Maybe in a few days or a few weeks. But next time we talk, it'll be my choice, not an obligation. On the flight back to the US, I carried a few small souvenirs. A handmade leather bracelet from Lisbon, a leather-bound journal from Seville, and pages of handwritten thoughts I'd never shared before. But most importantly, I brought home a new version of myself. When I unlocked the door to my small apartment in Charlotte, the faint scent of lavender from the last candle I'd burned greeted me like an old friend. I wheeled my suitcase in, set it down, and didn't rush to unpack. I brewed a cup of tea and sat in the armchair near the window, watching the sunset stretch across the sky. I was no longer the 32-year-old woman living by her family's expectations. I was Isabella, the woman who stood up, went far, and came home to herself. Before turning off the lights for bed, I added one last line to my journal. I don't need to be chosen anymore. I choose myself. I returned to work on Monday, 2 weeks after the trip. Everything at the office was just as I'd left it. Tidy desk, the tiny cactus I planted last year still green by the window. But me? I was no longer the same. I worked hard, but I no longer forgot to rest. I turned off phone notifications in the evenings, and instead of checking work emails before bed, I read books. I began living by my own rhythm. Then, on a quiet Wednesday afternoon, while I was sipping oolong tea in the small garden behind my house, the phone rang. The name lit up on the screen. Mom. I hesitated. What I felt wasn't anger anymore. It was caution. I let it ring a second time before picking up. "Hi, sweetheart." My mom's voice was softer than usual. No sharpness, no scolding. "I know, it's late, but I wanted to call, not to argue." I stayed quiet, waiting. "I've done a lot of thinking, Isabella," she continued, "about the trip, about how your dad and I acted, about Brittany, too. I know I was wrong to let you be pushed aside like that. I should have valued you, not just seen you as the one who always endures." I couldn't deny her words stirred something in me. But I'd learned. "Words are not the same as change," I replied calmly. "I appreciate you calling, but you need to understand that an apology can't take the place of action. Not this time." On the other end, Mom was silent for a moment, then asked, "What do you need from me so you can trust again?" I looked up at the late afternoon sky, the sunset shining through the leaves, and spoke slowly. "I need to see you treat me like a person with value, not just when I'm useful, but also when I say no. I need you to stop favoring Brittany just because I stay quiet. And most of all, I need to not be seen as the one who's always okay just because I don't ask for much." My mom responded softly, "I'll try. And I hope you'll see it, not just hear it." I let out a quiet sigh. I'm not ready for family dinners like before, but I'm willing to talk more. A little at a time, when I feel comfortable. "Thank you for giving me a chance," she said. Her voice was real, not performative. I nodded. A chance isn't the same as immediate forgiveness, but it's a door I'm leaving open. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I'm no longer running away, but I'm not going back to the old path either. I'm walking toward the light, and anyone who wants to walk with me has to learn to respect my pace." In the weeks that followed, Mom would text me, checking in, but never pushing. No guilt-trippy messages like, "I'm so sad you didn't reply." Instead, she sent thoughtful notes. "There's a book fair in the park today. You used to love going. If you have time, I can leave a ticket at the counter." I didn't go, but I appreciated it. As for Brittany, she stayed silent. And honestly, I wasn't ready to close that distance either. She once called me dramatic, selfish, and too much, and never once apologized. It wasn't about holding a grudge. I've just learned that forgiveness doesn't mean letting people hurt you again. The next month, I signed up for the photography class I had put off since last year. I booked a short fall trip to Vancouver, not to escape, but to keep walking the path of living true to myself. One afternoon, Grace and I sat under the awning of a cafe, sunlight pouring through our peach tea glasses. She looked at me and smiled. You know what, Isabella? Ever since you started choosing yourself, you've been brighter. I laughed. Maybe it's the new skincare routine. Nope. Grace shook her head, gently touching my hand. It's because you finally stopped chasing other people's approval. I didn't say anything. I just looked out at the street, where life moved on, and, for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to catch up to it. Every Saturday morning, I brought my camera, the old Canon I'd bought but never dared use, to photography class in the arts district near downtown. The class was small, just about 8 people, most of them like me, people who had once tucked their passions into a drawer because of family responsibilities, duty, or simply not the right time. And then one day, they too had chosen. Now is the time. I learned to slow down, to frame a shot rather than just point and click. Once, I captured an elderly couple holding hands as they crossed the street, sunlight filtering through the trees, casting a soft glow around them. The teacher looked at the photo and said, "You caught real emotion. That's not easy to do." I smiled, not for the praise, but because I realized I was living slower, but deeper. On Tuesday nights, I joined a local hiking group. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who wore trail shoes, carried a backpack, and climbed through steep woods. But it turns out hiking isn't just about terrain. It's about pushing past your own limits. Every time I stood atop a hill overlooking Charlotte, bathed in sunset light, I felt something inside me stitching back together. The invisible wounds from years of silent endurance began to heal. No need to scream, no need for comfort. Just knowing I was moving forward was enough. At the end of the month, I booked my next trip, this time to Iceland. Not because I was running away from something, but because I was chasing something. Expansion, of perspective, of limits, of the soul. I was no longer packing suitcases for someone else. Now, every item I carried was an intentional choice. Light, yet complete. A good pair of shoes, a fresh notebook, and the first photo I ever printed from my photography class. That image of the elderly couple with a handwritten line beneath it. Love isn't about holding on. It's about setting each other free. Brittany still hadn't reached out, and I didn't push for it. Everyone has their own rhythm to learn how to grow up. I had been silent for too long. Now I know distance isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's the space needed to recognize each other's worth. Mom occasionally sends me cat photos via text, little stories, no longer laced with the pressure to reply right away. I respond when I want to. We no longer bind each other with obligation, but slowly we're learning to rebuild with respect. One fall afternoon, I sat on the porch, sipping coffee and flipping through the pages of my journey notebook. The early pages held frustration, unanswered questions. But as I turned further, my handwriting grew rounder, steadier, and clearer, just like me. I was no longer Isabel, the daughter who always sacrifices. No longer the one who fixes things for the family. No longer Brittany's shadow. I was Isabella, the woman who knows her worth, who chooses herself every day. When night fell, I turned on the warm light in my living room, its glow dancing on the walls and reflecting off the photo frames I filled with my own pictures. Moments where I was fully alive, not performing for anyone. No more judgment, no more expectant glances. Just silence, like a soft blanket after a long storm within. I wrote one last line in my notebook. They once called me cold for stepping back, but it was in stepping back that I became warm enough to love myself. I closed the book, turned off the lights, and went to sleep. That night, I didn't dream. Because finally I was living the very dream I once feared to touch. Freedom. And being myself. Isabella's story is a powerful reminder that loving yourself isn't selfish. It's essential. In a world where sacrifice is often mistaken for duty, she dared to break the mold and step into her true freedom. Life doesn't require us to please everyone. It asks us to live in alignment with our values. Each of us deserves to be chosen, not out of obligation, but because we are whole, even when we stand alone. What do you think of Isabella's decision? Would you be brave enough to put yourself first the way she did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more deep and inspiring family stories to come.